Welcome to the Game Week 27 video. Now this week kicks off with West Ham and Sunderland, and in terms of the Premier League, West Ham, last game was 2-2 away to Norwich, and since then they've done well in the FA Cup. They've obviously progressed in that. And the key player for West Ham at the moment, no doubt, is Dimitri Payet, a player I got in my team a few weeks ago, and something I kind of foreseen. And not only is he involved in set pieces, he's getting the goals as well, and he's a big part of what West Ham do forward. So if he's a player that you can afford, definitely someone you should get, because if you look at the players around that price region, he definitely stands out. So Dimitri Payet for sure. We've seen, Antonio, Valencia, other players around him kind of slow down, but the fact that he takes set pieces gives him that extra edge in this game. So definitely Dimitri Payet, one player to look out for. And West Ham, 2-0 down against Norwich, come back 2-2, and maybe should have won the game. Emenike had a great chance at the end. How much Emenike will be involved? He's a player from the Turkish league, and Slaven Bilic does have some knowledge of the player, but I think he could be a big part of what West Ham do in terms of the first team. But maybe this is the type of game to actually see if he does actually play him in the first team at the start of the game. So I think West Ham against Sunderland, Sunderland obviously great win in the Premier League against Man United. For me, they kind of deserved it. 1-0 up with Kazri, a player I mentioned before. He's taking set pieces. He's a player, very much involved. And would have got 2 assists had the goal been given as their own goal. But Sunderland got 3 big points. They're still on the bottom 3, but you just wonder if they didn't get those 3 points, how the situation will be for them at the moment. But there is still hope for Sunderland, but it's a really big game for both teams in the sense that West Ham, can they really go up on the table, and can Sunderland get something here? Because there's 12 games left and every game is almost a cup final. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think Sam Allardyce against his former team, that's a great story and should be a good game to watch. I think West Ham probably just have enough about them to edge this game out, but it's that time of the season where you can't really predict results. So it wouldn't shock me if Sunderland did get something out of this game, even if they were to win this game as well. Now, in terms of the 3 o'clock kickoffs, we start off with Leicester Norwich, and Leicester, weren't involved in the cup and not obviously in the Champions League, but they probably will be next year. They obviously, last game against Arsenal, losing it in the last kick of the game. They'll be deflated because I think had they maintained their points, margin, I think would have been quite good for Leicester. If you look at the fixtures coming up, Leicester have a decent run of fixtures. So for that very reason, I would say look at Leicester players. Look at Vardy especially. Now he's taking the penalties of Mahrez because Mahrez missed a few. That puts him, right up there. If you look at his value, 7.4 up to 7.7 this week. He's a player in demand. Mahrez, similarly again, I know he's not taking the set pieces, but he is involved. You just got to look at the Man City game to see how heavily involved he was, and obviously he got a goal in that game. So at 7.1, definitely worth a shout. In terms of defenders, Leicester do have quite a few home games, and they've shown quite good defensive stability since the start of the season. Simpson being suspended, I think, Morgan at 4.3 is probably the best next shout. So if you're looking for a Leicester defender, I'll go for Morgan. And obviously he has a set piece threat as well. Norwich, I really wonder for them. I know at the moment they're out of the relegation zone by I think goal difference, but the thing is we've seen them numerous times getting good situations in home games, and they've not taken the advantage. You look at Liverpool, for instance, then you look at against West Ham. Those are big points dropped, and I think if Norwich were to survive, in a sense they weren't going to get relegated this season, I think mentally we will have to give a lot of credit to the Norwich players because they know they've thrown a lot of points this season away. This is a big game, like I said, if West Ham Sunderland's a big game, so is this. One going for the league and one survival. Tough game. Have to give it to Leicester in terms of predictions, but never underestimate what Norwich are capable of. But I still think Norwich defensively, there's just too many problems there and lack of quality, to be frank. So I strongly think Leicester will win this game. In terms of Southampton and Chelsea, Southampton have I think it's 6 consecutive clean sheets. Not only that, but they're winning games, and winning 1-0 away to Swansea. Shane Long got the goal, but defensively, very good, resolute performance. Kind of restricted Swansea in terms of any clear-cut opportunities, really. Van Dijk, I think, got the free bonus, and he's definitely a player. If you want to, upsize in terms of certain values, or defenders up there in terms of bringing them into your team, you've got to consider him because he does take set pieces here and there. He does have that goal threat in terms of set pieces, and he's very likely to get a good amount of bonus points if Southampton keep a clean sheet. So taking those things on board, he's a defender I would look at along with Target. Valued at 3.8, came back and got some good points for a player. He's only valued at 3.8. He's not going to get the bonus. It's very unlikely unless he's involved in the set, in getting an assist. But still at 3.8, definitely very attractive. Chelsea, on the other hand, they've been doing pretty well. Won the FA Cup game convincingly against Man City, although it was kind of a second string team, and still, did the business. 5-1, 5-1, 5-1 against Newcastle. There's a lot of players to talk about. Is Hazard back in form? Possibly. Costa, 100% a player. If you've got the money, get him straight up. He's definitely a striker. I think in this fantasy game at the moment, there's a lot of strikers that you can get. So it's just a case of which three do you really want, and if Costa's a player that you have around 10 to 11 million pounds available, definitely worth a shout. Willian, of course, and even Pedro. I think Pedro is the one who's more, he's a bit unique in this game still. I don't think that many people got him, and he does get a lot of chances. 15 points on last round. He's a player I would definitely look at. They do have problems for me, Chelsea defensively, and I think the fact that even they conceded a goal against Newcastle, it just shows that. So I would kind of refrain from getting a defender from Chelsea. This game should be a good game to watch. Reverse fixture earlier in the season, Southampton won 3-1. I reckon with Chelsea, with the Champions League not coming, not that far away. With the injuries they've got as well, I probably see this as a draw. But if someone's going to win, this could be either one. Chelsea are undefeated, under Hiddink. So, let's see what Chelsea are, capable of. At the moment, they're on form. Chelsea have picked up form, so it should be interesting to see if that consistency required that made them champions last year. Stoke and Villa. Stoke come back from a great 3-1, win away at Bournemouth, and just when pressure was being exerted, I was talking about some key defeats Stoke have suffered in the last few weeks. In terms of all the competitions, whether that be the Carling Cup, FA Cup, and the Premier League. But Imbula, new signing, good goal, and Afalai being involved, and Waters. Waters is a player I would look at actually at 5.6 million pounds, 5.6. He's a player very much involved in what Stoke do offensively, and if you look at his price value, especially as well, that is something that's worth going for. So Jonathan Walters at 5.6. Definitely worth a shout, along with the players we always mentioned before at Stoke. Villa, on the other hand, I would not recommend a single player at Villa at the moment. I mean, yeah, okay, we've mentioned players before, but I really think looking at the Liverpool game, there was nothing there. And then hearing about reports that the Villa first team lost to the Villa under-21 squad in a indoor match. That's just embarrassing, to be frank. It just shows lack of commitment, desire, and everything that a Premier League team needs to survive in the league. So, for that very reason, I go for a Stoke win. And players I've mentioned before, in case you're wondering, if you're brand new to this channel, Shaqiri, Arnautovic, Bojan looks like he's on the bench, so he's maybe someone I wouldn't necessarily go for. Chief might be involved, but honestly, Shaqiri and Arnautovic, those are the two players I'll look at, along with Waters. And I feel like it's still somewhat of a risk, if I'm honest, so I wouldn't go for him. Defensively, I still think Glenn Johnson is the one that stands out to me because of his ability to maybe get an assist or maybe even a goal. And the last 3 o'clock kickoff is Watford and Bournemouth, and Watford picked up 3 big points, away to Crystal Palace, mounting a lot of misery for them because Palace's form not been great, but Watford did take advantage, and Deeney, 2 good goals. So, everyone knows about the pair for Watford. Those are the 2 players you should look at. But this is a big game because both these teams came promoted, and both have done pretty well. Bournemouth probably are just getting dragged slowly back to the relegation zone. Um, and this is probably a bigger game for Bournemouth than it is for Watford, in the sense that there's more pressure for Bournemouth to get something out of this game. A lot of people got Daniels in, and he got an assist, and how he got a bonus just mystified me, to be honest, because I don't think his performance was actually that great. But it's the BPS system in this game, like I was explaining. They do favour certain players, so he definitely got the benefit of that. Richie was the player I was talking about. Came on and got the goal. I do think he does in terms of his conversion rate, it's not great, but he will eventually get something. So he's definitely a player I'll look at, along with even a Phobe. And yeah, so this game is going to be tight. Probably just really tight. It's too tough to call. Watford have been pretty good at home at earlier start of the season, but they kind of dipped slightly at home. So at Vicarage Road, just think that if Bournemouth can get something here, really puts them in a better situation than what it is and prevents them from getting dragged to the bottom three places. So for that very reason, I see maybe a draw, but it can go either way. And in terms of the 5:30 kickoff, West Brom and Palace. West Brom surprising win, away at Goodison. Set piece goal, Jonas Olsen, a player who I got out of my team for that week, ends up getting I think 12 points, and Rondon got the goal. Interesting news in the sense that Beharina has now apologised, so I think he could be all of a sudden very much involved in what West Brom do. So he's a player I'll look at. And look, Jonas Olsen was a player I had in my team, and similarly again you can consider him, but I do think West Brom are very vulnerable in defence, and this was shown in the FA Cup. So I think even though you got the 12 points, I still would say maybe West Brom defenders are not the best thing in the world. But maybe Tony Pulis has turned things around and realised there's 12 games to go. West Brom are not exactly out of the relegation battle, so maybe they've sorted some small problems out. But if you're gonna go for a defender, West Brom, for me it'll be Jonas Olsen. Palace on the other hand are really struggling. I think it's a big win for them, by the way. White Hart Lane FA Cup, massive win, and keeping a clean sheet I think was a bigger key. So taking things on board, maybe Palace can bring that confidence into the league, and if they do, defender-wise, we talked about Hennessy, Delaney and Dan, good players to have as well. Papas was sent off, but I think he probably is back from that suspension. Offensively, Adebayo looks like it's a big part of what Alan Pardew wants to do along with Wickham. So, Adebayo is definitely worth a shout. He does get chances and he definitely can score. So, he's a player I would recommend along with Zaha. So, I think this game's tough to call as well. I think this week has got a lot of tough to call fixtures. So, let's see. Now, in terms of the Sunday game, we've got Man United and Arsenal, and Man United obviously with a defeat, but they've done pretty well. Beat Shrewsbury and against Michelin, got through, but they have to approach this game with a lot of injuries. It looks like Martial might be out with a hamstring injury. Lingard looks like he's back, but there's no guarantee he'll start. Borthwick Jackson is he's injured as well, and they've got a few injuries. Obviously, Rooney out for 6 weeks. I think injuries look like they will hamper Man United, in my opinion. And also on the other hand, disappointing result against Barcelona. But I think with Chamberlain being injured, it just means that it's going to be interesting to see what Wenger does. I think it wouldn't be surprising if Jury was dropped in this game. I should mention this. Not that I expect Welbeck to start, but I wouldn't be surprised if Walcott started. We all know how Arsenal dismantled Man United literally in the first 20 minutes at Emirates, and Walcott was up front with Sanchez, Ozil in the middle, and it wouldn't surprise me if Wenger did the same. And Ramsey for me has been really off the form, but I think he'll probably still start. So, and it looks like Joe Campbell will probably take that position on the wing. So he's a player, he's maybe worth the risk. Not guaranteed to start, but he's definitely someone you maybe should consider. But definitely I would say Sanchez, Ozil, Gabriel looks like he could be back, but still probably risky. I think Mertesacker played quite well actually in that Champions League game, so he's obviously the cheapest defender you can get at the moment at Arsenal. I think valued at 5.3. I think this is the first time in Premier League history that Arsenal go to Man United at Old Trafford as favourites. And I think with the injuries that Man United have, this is, I think Arsenal will win this game. The only reason why Arsenal won't win this game, especially if you consider the fact that Man United had a game not too long ago, is just lack of quality, and just not on it on the day. But otherwise, all the signs say that Arsenal should win this game. And the last game is Spurs and Swansea, and Spurs do have a slight problem with Harry Kane potentially injured, but it looks like he'll probably just make it for this game. And they come back from a great win away to Man City, and I think that puts them very much, in the title race. Obviously, they beat Fiorentina, so they do have that backup plan if they have to. And if you look at the draw, there's Man United, Liverpool, and Spurs and Dortmund, which would be really good, fascinating ties. There's going to be very good ties in the Champions League, hopefully, and very good ties in the UEFA Cup. So it's good for the neutral and the football fanatic. Swansea on the other hand, losing 1-0 at home to Southampton really lacked drive, the killer edge. Players like Sigurdsson away, you weren't exactly on it in that game. And I just have to say, even though this is a big game for Swans, with only 3 points separating them, from the relegation zone, I'm going to go for a Spurs win. And I think Eriksen in the last five games have really picked up. Player look at 100% along with the set pieces he takes. Dele Alli at 6.1. He even had a great chance. He gets quite a few chances from corners actually. If you watch the Palace game, Ali does get a few chances. So at 6.1, definitely worth a shout. And the last thing I would like to mention is, now, as you notice, there's quite a few teams that are not playing this week, and in 3 weeks' time, this repeats again due to FA Cup fixtures. So it's very important that rather than me listing out all the teams that are not playing, like I did for this week, there were 4 teams that are not playing this week. But on that particular game week, there are 8 teams, I believe. So do look at a team. Do check, do you actually have a first 11 that can play that week? If you don't, start making some transfers beforehand so you avoid taking minus cuts, potentially. And there's something that I want to say that should be common sense, but I will say it now. If, for example, you have a Aguero in your team, he's valued at 13.5 or 13.6, right? And you bought him at a much lower price. So most people probably, who've been following this channel might have got Aguero maybe when it's around like £30 million when he's come back from his injury. If you got rid of him now, you might not have funds to get him back in, because even though his value is gained, that the change in his value, you only get about half of that. So you probably got 13.53 in the bank. So that really there's a low chance that Aguero will go down to the price that you can afford him again. And you're just better off keeping your team and managing the other players. So get out players appropriately, not the ones that you think you can't get back, and especially big players like Aguero in this game. There's no doubt, if you watch the Man City game, for instance, in the Champions League, this is an example. He's obviously a key player, with the set pieces as well. So just something, I thought like mentioning. And obviously, players that miss out a game week will benefit with a double game week. So, and that's probably your best situation, or best time to maybe use your bench boost or your triple captain. So that's my analysis of game week 27, and I wish all you guys all good luck for this game week.